A cold hush settled over the Imperial War Chamber as the Grand Sovereign of the Galactic Empire, Xipherion the Eternal, rose from his obsidian throne. His presence alone, a towering figure wrapped in a flowing crimson cloak, commanded fear. Below him, a holographic projection of Earth flickered, its blue and green surface appearing almost fragile in the void. "The humans resist," Xipherion murmured, his voice like the grinding of ancient metal. "They are insignificant, yet persistent." His gaze swept across the War Council, a collection of generals and strategists who had conquered 100 worlds. Lord Valzeric, the commander of the Empire's elite assassins, stepped forward, clad in a seamless black exosuit that absorbed the chamber's light. He bowed slightly. His species, the Nyx, were the Empire's most feared infiltrators, shapeshifters, silent and lethal. "We underestimated their resilience," Valzeric admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Their warriors have resisted our preliminary incursions, striking back with efficiency. If we launch an open war, they will fight to the last breath. It would be costly." Xipherian's sharp, angular features remained unreadable. "Then we do not fight a war." His hand curled into a fist, and the hologram shifted, displaying several human faces. Military leaders, intelligence officers, and one man in particular, the one Earth's warriors revered as a ghost, a myth, a force of nature. "Sergeant Jack Donovan," Valzeric murmured, studying the face of the decorated sniper. "They call him the Phantom Reaper. Over 200 confirmed kills in war zones across their planet. His kind will be our undoing if left unchecked." Xipherion nodded. "Eliminate him, and the rest will crumble." Without another word, Valzeric turned and disappeared into the shadows, already preparing his strike team for deployment. The night sky over Montana stretched vast and unbroken, a quiet contrast to the storm brewing beyond the stars. Jack Donovan knelt in the frozen grass, his rifle resting against his shoulder, his breath barely visible in the cold air. 1,000 yards away, a steel plate the size of a human head sat fixed to a wooden post. He exhaled slowly, the world narrowing to the crosshairs of his scope. Crack! The bullet struck dead center, a perfect hit. Another followed, then another. Jack lowered the rifle and leaned back, staring up at the sky. Something felt off tonight. A rustling in the trees behind him pulled him back to the moment. He didn't turn. "You make too much noise for a scout," he said. A familiar chuckle followed. "And you take too long to fire," replied Captain Sarah Whitaker, stepping out of the brush. Dressed in black tactical gear, she moved like a ghost, her presence barely disturbing the air. Jack smirked. "If I was taking too long, you'd already be dead." Sarah stopped beside him, following his gaze skyward. "They say the Pentagon has been picking up strange transmissions. Unusual energy signatures. Too. Something big is coming." Jack adjusted his rifle, scanning the tree line. "It's always something big. This time it's different." She knelt beside him, voice quieter now. "High-ranking officers are dropping like flies. No signs of struggle, no traces of an assassin. Just dead. Something is killing them, and we don't know what." Jack tightened his grip on the rifle. "That why you're here." She handed him a manila folder. "They want you back in Washington. Effective immediately. They think someone like you might be able to spot what's coming before it gets us all killed." Jack sighed, standing and slinging his rifle over his shoulder. "Guess I'll pack." 3 days later, the briefing room at the Pentagon buzzed with nervous energy. A dozen of the military's best, from Delta Force operators to NSA analysts, sat around a dark table, eyes fixed on a projection at the front of the room. Brigadier General Nathan Cole stood before them, his expression grim. "We're facing an enemy unlike anything we've encountered." He clicked a remote, and a blurred surveillance image appeared. A figure, humanoid, standing over a lifeless general in his locked hotel suite. A moment later, the figure shimmered and changed, taking on the general's form perfectly. A cold silence filled the room. "These things are infiltrating our highest ranks," Cole continued. "We believe they are extraterrestrial in origin, highly advanced, and capable of mimicking any human they come into contact with." He glanced at Jack. "That's why we called you here." Jack studied the image, then the next, and the next. Grainy footage of silent assassinations, enemies that left no trace of their presence. He had spent years hunting men who thought they were untouchable, but this was different. He wasn't hunting humans anymore. They have weaknesses. Jack asked. Cole exchanged a glance with Sarah, then clicked again. The next image was clearer. A corpse not human, its skin black and semi-translucent, its limbs elongated and unnatural. A single bullet wound marked its head. Jack leaned forward. Who took that shot? Sarah folded her arms. A Marine sniper in a convoy near Baghdad. The thing tried to replace their commanding officer, but got caught. It was fast, but not faster than a .50 caliber round. Jack smirked. Good to know they bleed. Cole nodded, which is why we're forming Operation Phantom. Their ability to disguise themselves makes them almost impossible to detect, but there's one thing they can't fake. He turned to Jack. They can't fake fear. Jack raised an eyebrow. Cole continued, his voice low. We believe they operate on pure logic. No emotion, no instinct for self-preservation. But when they are hunted, really hunted, when they realize they're the prey, they hesitate. That's where you come in. Jack exhaled, thinking, this wasn't the first time he'd been sent to kill ghosts. But these ghosts were smarter, deadlier. And if he failed, there wouldn't be a second chance. He glanced at Sarah, who gave him a small nod. They had been through hell before. They'd go through it again. Jack looked back at Cole. When do we start? Cole smiled grimly. Welcome to the hunt. Above Earth, in the silent void of space, Vale Zarek watched through his vessel's viewport. The humans had begun to stir. Their warriors preparing for war. He had underestimated them once. He would not do so again. The hunt was only beginning. Jack Donovan lay prone atop the abandoned radio tower, his rifle a seamless extension of his body. The city below was quiet, but not in the way a city should be. It was the silence of something lurking, waiting. Through his scope, he tracked the streets, scanning for the impossible. An enemy that could be standing in plain sight, yet remain unseen. The wind barely stirred, and his breathing was slow, controlled. Patience was his weapon, a flicker at the edge of his vision. A man in a military uniform moved through the alley below, his stride deliberate, nothing unusual at first glance. But Jack had spent a lifetime watching how soldiers walked. This one moved too smoothly, like he had learned it from a textbook. His head never swiveled to check his surroundings. His shoulders never shifted with the weight of his gear. He was an imitation, perfect in form but devoid of instinct. Jack exhaled and tightened his grip on the trigger. The shot cracked through the air, a .338 Lapua round tearing through the target's skull. The figure staggered, but something was wrong. No blood. The head shimmered, shifting between forms. First a soldier, then a blank, featureless visage, like something unfinished. The alien assassin dropped to one knee, its body struggling to hold shape. Jack fired again. The second shot severed what passed for a spinal cord, and the thing collapsed, convulsing before going still. A voice crackled through his earpiece. Confirmed kill. Jack kept his eye on the scope. It bled, but not like us, more like oil and static. He scanned the rooftops for movement. Still no sign of the others. If that was a scout, the real ones aren't far. Sarah's voice was steady. Understood. Relocate. We don't know if they can track the shot. Jack was already moving. He disassembled his rifle with practiced efficiency, slinging the components into his pack before slipping into the darkness of the stairwell. He took the descent slow, his senses sharp. The assassins had shown their hand, but that meant nothing if he underestimated them. He had fought humans who thought they were untouchable. These things were untouchable, at least until now. Outside, the air was thick with tension. The city's dim streetlights flickered as if protesting the presence of something unnatural. Jack moved through the alleys, sticking to the shadows, his sidearm drawn. Every civilian could be a ghost in disguise, every empty space a potential death trap. As he turned a corner, a whisper of movement. He pivoted, weapon raised. Sarah. She emerged from the darkness, her own pistol steady. Friendly, she murmured, lowering it. Jack exhaled and nodded. You get the footage? She held up a small device. Thermal confirmed it. You hit something not of this world. She glanced around. We need to move. I got a safe house 5 blocks east. Jack fell into step beside her. They won't run now, he muttered. They'll come straight for us. Sarah's expression was unreadable. Good. The safe house was a nondescript apartment, stripped of anything personal. The windows were covered, and the only furniture was a single table and 2 chairs. Jack set his rifle case down and exhaled. Sarah locked the door behind them. I need you to see something. She pulled a tablet from her pack, tapping the screen. Footage played, security camera feeds from various military installations. The assassins had been busy. Generals, strategists, scientists, all replaced in seamless executions. The death toll was climbing, but what unsettled Jack wasn't the numbers. It was the precision. These things don't just kill, Sarah said, voice tight. They replace. Jack leaned forward. And they're getting faster. He watched a frame-by-frame breakdown of an attack. An assassin shifted mid-strike, adjusting its body to dodge a bullet before it was even fired. A disturbing level of adaptability. Sarah set the tablet down. We can't win a direct fight. They're too integrated, too efficient. Jack thought for a moment. Then we don't fight them directly. She narrowed her eyes. What are you thinking? Jack reached into his bag, pulling out a small drone the size of his palm. I spent years hunting insurgents who knew how to disappear. You don't chase them. You make them chase you. He activated the drone, letting it hover. These things operate on logic. No emotion, no instinct for self-preservation. But what if they start fearing something? Sarah caught on. You want to flush them out, force them to make mistakes. Jack nodded. Snipers don't fight wars. We create chaos. Let the enemy fall into their own traps. Sarah studied him for a long moment, then gave a rare smile. I like it. Jack secured his gear. Then let's set the bait. Outside, the night stretched on, silent and waiting. The hunt was far from over. The first explosion shattered the night, turning the skyline into a silhouette of burning metal and fractured glass. Sirens screamed through the streets, but Jack Donovan had no time to listen. He pressed his body flat against the rooftop, his rifle steady as he tracked movement through the smoke-choked air. The invasion had begun. Alien dropships hovered over the city, their sleek black forms spilling out soldiers unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Towering figures encased in shifting armor moved with terrifying precision, weapons pulsing with energy. They advanced through the ruined streets, cutting down anything in their path. The assassins had been a prelude. This was the full force of the Galactic Empire. Jack exhaled slowly and found his first target, a commander, standing tall amidst the chaos, issuing orders in a guttural language. Jack adjusted his aim. He had spent years dismantling enemy forces by taking their leaders first. This would be no different. He pulled the trigger. The round hit home, punching through the commander's skull. The alien staggered, its body flickering as its adaptive armor failed to compensate for the damage. It collapsed, and for a moment, the enemy ranks hesitated. Just a moment, but that was enough. From the surrounding rooftops, other snipers opened fire. Jack's team, the best of the best. A coordinated strike, each shot surgically precise. Commanders fell, their forces momentarily disoriented. The plan was working. Through his earpiece, Sarah's voice cut through the noise. They're shifting tactics. More aggressive now. Jack watched as the enemy regrouped, moving faster than before. The hesitation was gone. They had adapted. The momentary advantage was already slipping away. I see it, he muttered, adjusting position. His fingers moved instinctively, loading another round. The war wasn't going to be won with single shots. They needed something bigger. A tremor ran to the ground, deep enough to rattle the bones. Jack glanced up. Something was descending from the largest dropship. Something massive. A towering figure, nearly 3 times the height of a man, its armor humming with energy. The air around it warped as if reality itself struggled to contain its presence. Sarah's voice came through again, quieter this time. That's him. Jack didn't need to ask who him was. Lord Zyphirian. the warlord of the Galactic Empire, the one who had orchestrated this invasion from the start. Jack watched as Zypherian surveyed the battlefield, his glowing eyes sweeping over the carnage. Then, almost lazily, he lifted a hand. A pulse of energy erupted outward, and in an instant, an entire city block vanished. Not destroyed, erased. Jack felt the instinctual urge to move, to run, but he forced himself still. He wasn't a soldier in an army. He was a hunter, and this was the biggest target of his life. "Can you kill him?" Sarah asked. Jack considered the question. A standard round wouldn't pierce that armor. Even his best sniper rifle would barely scratch it. But there was one weapon that might. He reached into his pack and pulled out something experimental, something not yet tested in real combat. A railgun sniper, its barrel lined with electromagnetic coils. The kind of weapon that didn't just fire bullets, but accelerated them to speeds that turned them into miniature meteors. It was a single-shot design, too unstable for rapid fire. If he missed, there wouldn't be a second chance. Jack settled into position, centering Zypherian in his sights. The warlord was still standing in the open, confident in his invulnerability. The arrogance of a conqueror. Jack exhaled. He adjusted for distance, wind, the subtle movements of the planet beneath him. Everything slowed, the chaos around him fading to nothing. He pulled the trigger. The recoil slammed into his shoulder like a hammer, but the shot was already gone, a streak of white-hot energy cutting through the night. It struck Zypherian dead center. For a second, nothing happened. Then, cracks spiderwebbed across the warlord armor. A sound like grinding stone filled the air as the energy shielding collapsed. Zypherian staggered, clutching his chest, his glowing eyes dimming in shock. He let out a sound, something between a roar and a gasp, before his massive form crumpled to the ground. Silence fell. The battlefield, once a storm of destruction, was frozen. The invading soldiers turned, staring at their fallen leader. For the first time, they hesitated. Then, without warning, they began to retreat. The dropships lifted off, abandoning their positions. The Empire's forces, so unstoppable mere moment ago, were breaking. Jack slumped back, his breath finally escaping him. His shoulder throbbed from the impact of the shot, but he didn't care. Sarah's voice came through, quiet but firm. "You did it." Jack stared at the night sky, watching as the enemy fled. The war wasn't over. Not really. The Empire still existed, and they wouldn't forget this defeat. But Earth had bought itself time. Jack picked up his rifle and stood. "Let's get ready for the next one."